Well, alright, I'm getting ready to install the EGR valve. You can accidentally put this in incorrectly 180 degrees out, so I know it goes this way. New gasket. Start installing this. Go ahead and grab another bolt. Make sure I get that on there. Gonna run these in by hand, and we're going to do the initial torque on this to 88 inch-pounds. So here's the 88 coming at you in high definition. Just going to go back and forth just a bit to snug things up. The next pass on this is going to get 22 foot-pounds. And I was not prepared on my torque wrench for the socket. I apologize. That's going to need an extension to boot. My apologies. Pulling this down to 22 foot-pounds. And there we have it. Double check here. Looks good. Looks good. Well, alright, now I'm installing the thermostat and the thermostat housing. This is not a new thermostat. This has been in here for less than 500 miles, so it's good. Good to go. So I'll set that in place like so. And set the housing over it. And these bolts right here are getting torqued down to 18 foot-pounds. Truly exciting, is it not? Not too fun to watch, but you know, I was just trying to show what it takes, the time and effort it takes to do a build like this. Even though this is a stock build, it doesn't really matter. This could be high performance, this, that, and the other. But there's a lot of time invested here. You know, not to mention the cost that's associated with it. So I'm just bringing these up now like I had before. Just kind of seating them down. And then I'll torque them into 18. it just doesn't seem like that's enough. I mean, I would just really want a wrench on this, but that's what they call for, so that's what we're gonna do. And if anything leaks, I'll give it a little bit more. Alright, we're gonna install the throttle body now. I've got my new gasket laid in here. Everything is looking good. Just gonna set it on here. And put a little bit of oil on my threads. A little bit underneath this hat. Do the same thing on the next one. A little underneath the hat, a little bit on the threads. And then I've got this stud on the back. Same principle. Just a little bit on there. Now these are going to get torqued down to 80 inch-pounds, so I'll just run this down to where it's pretty snug. Those are longer than I thought they were. Looking good. And the stud on the back is actually going to take a different size, which is a 7/32, I believe. Bring it down. So I'm going to go ahead and torque this one first. And then finish off with these two right here. Well, alright, I've installed the accelerator control bracket. They were tightened down to 106 inch-pounds. This is where the cables run in to work the butterfly here on the throttle body. I also installed the coil many steps back at some point. Well, alright, I'm going to install this sensor right here. I'm not really sure which one this is. So I'm going to put some high temp thread sealant on it. About like that. And stick it in. This is in a water jacket, but I don't believe it's the temperature sender. So I'll get this one tightened up as well. Well, alright, I went ahead and installed the water pump. 4 bolts, 2 gaskets, done deal. I've been using this ultra black sealer from Permatex, and I put a high temp thread sealer on the bolts and torqued these down to 33 foot-pounds, so this is ready to roll. Alright, I've got the water pump installed, and I installed the bypass hose right here. I need to torque this pulley down that I've installed to 18 foot-pounds. So I'm going to grab a couple of these and work my way around it. Yeah, there we go. Well, alright, I'm just lining everything up so when I go to stab the distributor after I get it in the truck, it's going to be a lot easier for me. You know, because when you're putting this in, this gear is going to turn in, and you also need to make sure that this slot hits the oil pump. So you have to get in there with a screwdriver or something and turn it and get it just right. I'm not really following the manual on this one because my distributor's aftermarket. It had been replaced a year or so ago, and it doesn't have some of the markings on it that they're referencing. So basically what I've done is I was coming up on the #1 cylinder on the compression stroke, and I stopped 10 degrees before the timing mark. That's just where I'm going to bounce off for this, and then I'll have to use a scanner to dial it in. But on this particular distributor, there's a hole right here, so that's where I'm lining this up, and then there's a flat right here. You kind of want that flat to contour this, follow that line right there. So I've got it lined up on the one hole, and drop it down in here. And then right here there's a little point that's sticking off of the casting. That actually lines up with the #1 hole right here. So that's in essence where I will put it in and lock it down and then install my cap. And that should get me what I need to at least get it started, and then I'll fine tune it like I said with the scanner. Well, there it is. It's not going to go on with the exhaust manifold. I just wanted to see how it looked. Looks pretty good. It's ready to go in. I've installed the valve covers, water pump, pulleys, miscellaneous sensors and things like that. I've got to get it off the stand and get the flex plate put on it so I can stick it back in the truck, and then I'll finish the rest of it underneath the hood. Looks pretty good, I think. That doesn't mean anything about how it's going to run, but looking pretty good if you ask me. Alright, whole bunch of excitement. I got it sitting in there. You can see I was having to do this on the grass. That's very difficult, and it's uphill, so my dad was over here helping me. Got it set in here. I've only got 2 bolts in the transmission. I've got to get back there now that I've got it lowered down on the mounts. I've got a little bit more room to bolt that up. Engine mounts are in it. It's now time to start throwing in all the doodads and doohickeys. But it wasn't too bad. Well, I've had my first casualty. This is the oil pressure sender. I was supporting myself and I reached back behind the block and I leaned on it and snapped it. But I actually bought this truck from my dad, and look what I found in the glove box. A brand new one. I don't know why he even had it, but I got lucky on that deal. Well, alright, it's pretty much wrapped up. I've run it, everything is looking good. I only had a few minor issues. One, I broke that oil sender, but I got that taken care of last night. Secondly, I had a little bit of oil leaking out of the bottom corner of that valve cover on the passenger side at the back. So I just gave it a little bit more, wiped it down, and that shut that up. And then one of these hoses up here sprung a little leak in it, so I had to cut it off and put it on, but that was it. The first time I turned the key, I let the fuel pump run for just a second and then hit it, and it made about 3 revolutions and it just sprung to life. There was some slight ticking from the lifters not being pumped up, and then it smoothed out and everything's looking good. So at that stage I let it warm up. I finished filling up the coolant, and once it got to operating temperature, I took it out and broke in the rings. And basically the way I did that was, this is an automatic transmission, so I started off in first gear. I went up to about 2,000 RPMs, I shifted into second to 2,000 RPMs, and I shifted into third to 2,000 RPMs, and then I let off and let the engine brake the truck. So as I slowed down a little bit, I popped it down into second, and it revved up the motor, and then I popped it down into first. And I did that 3 or 4 times at about the 2,000 RPM mark, and then I took it up to 25, 3,000, 4,000, and 4,500. I think the red line on this is about 5,500. So I drove it for about 20 minutes doing that very thing, and each time I got more aggressive with it, more throttle, and then just drive it like you stole it. You know, that's really the way I break them in. The manuals say, you know, easy 2,000 miles or something. They do that a lot, in my opinion, because of lawsuits. They can't write in the manual to go out and burn the wheels off of it. So it smoked when I first fired it up, and it smoked a little bit because I was getting a lot of blow by. And by the time I hit my second cycle of what I was doing, it doesn't smoke a bit. I do not have the, it's not timing, I can't really remember what it is. It's like a cam advance or something like that. You're supposed to like take it up to about 1,000 RPMs, I believe 1,000 RPMs, and you want to turn the distributor to where it reads on the scanner plus or minus 2 degrees. I've done it once, I just have to go do that. It's too late, so I can't borrow the scanner. So I'm going to fire it up real quick and let you hear it. And for a stock truck, it runs like a top right now. I'll probably leave the oil in it that it's running right now for probably between 300 and 500 miles, and then I'll change it, and then I'll probably run it about 1,500 miles on the second oil change, and then I'll change it again, and then I'll go with the standard 3,000 miles. Alright guys, I wrapped up this build a couple days ago. I'm just finalizing the video. I did take it over to my brother-in-law's shop to use his scanner, and it's the cam retard offset is what it's called, and you're supposed to dial it in such a way at over 1,000 RPMs to be plus or minus 2 degrees. 0 of course is optimum. When I tested it from doing it by eye, when I originally put everything together, I was at 8 degrees, so I really only missed it by 6 degrees on the high side. I thought that was pretty good for just winging it. So I did get it dialed in dead on 0. It seems to run that much better. And that's basically to get the distributor turned in a position to eliminate crosstalk in between the cylinder holes, so you're not firing and it's not jumping on 2 at the same time. Turning the distributor on this truck does nothing. It does not change timing at all. That is controlled electronically, and that primarily is what that crank position sensor is on the front of the engine. Now this total ran in at 25, 95, 26. Now keep in mind that is for everything I did and everything I needed and then some. That was cleaners, strippers, paints, towels, All my fluids, antifreeze, oils, distilled water. I changed out the spark plugs, the spark plug wires. I changed out, I warrantied out the compressor since it was leaking, so new refrigerant. Just all of those extra things that might go into it. Yeah, I could have picked up a GM crate motor from the factory for probably $2,600, $2,700, maybe $2,800. I still would have had a lot of fluid expense and things like that above and beyond that, but I would have had the same problem with the heads potentially in the future. And through my digging around, basically what I have discovered is these Vortec heads, if you get them hot, they're done. They crack. And that's why there's so many out there cracked. 210 degrees, if you don't catch it by then, throw them away, get a new set. So I went this direction. That particular cost right there was a big jump in my price because I had to pay $679 for new heads in lieu of maybe a couple hundred, $250 for a valve job. So that kind of explains it. I probably would have been around the $2,000 mark. So anyway, just an idea on what it takes to do a job like this. I hope this helps someone in some way. If anybody's made it to this part in the video, hey, thanks for watching and good luck.